Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Cassie Longoria and I'm an early childhood specialist here at TEA. I think I've met most of you or talked to most of you over the phone, but we have a couple of new people, so I just wanted to show my face and say hello and welcome you to the webinar. This is our first webinar in a series of webinars and PLCs that we'll have over the course of the year around pre-kindergarten enrollment and access. So thank you again for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to sort of set the tone for the year and discuss continuous quality improvement and setting goals as it relates to pre-kindergarten enrollment and access. A few logistical things. Everyone here is currently on mute. My colleague Whitney Wallace is here and she is going to be responding to questions. So if you have any questions, please utilize the question section in the control panel of GoToWebinar. This is where you can let her know if you're having any issues or if you have any questions about the content. We will also have time at the end of the webinar for questions, but you can ask throughout as well if you'd like. Additionally, handouts are available in the handout section of the control panel. It's just a PDF version of this PowerPoint presentation. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded in case you or a colleague would like to watch or reference it later, or if you know someone who missed it but wanted to be here. Before we begin, I wanted to have a quick brainstorm session about why pre-kindergarten enrollment is important. So just sort of discuss, why are you all here? What drove you or your district to be a part of this support network? What's the importance behind this? So on your computer or phone, if you can go to the link that's listed here and type in your response, and then we'll review those together. Great, we have an answer, early intervention for at-risk children. And if you'd like, you can put in multiple answers. Just kind of wanted to get a collection here of everyone's thoughts on pre-K enrollment. Give everyone a little more time to put in their answers. It levels the playing field. Brain development occurs before 5. Early school readiness, it's the foundational years. Yes, these are all great reasons why pre-K enrollment is important. There's so much research out there about why this is important and why we should be increasing enrollment and increasing access. And so this year we'll be working together to try and work towards those goals. So we have a couple of other responses. 90% of brain development, serve as many kids as possible. These are great. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go back to our presentation. Okay. So there's a lot of reasons why pre-K enrollment is important. Pre-kindergarten is sort of a different ballgame than general enrollment because there's eligibility factors, because pre-K is not the usual grade parents enroll children. Usually parents think to enroll children in kinder. The hours are different, the length of the day is different. Pre-K may not be offered at the closest school to the parent. So there's a lot of different factors that affect pre-K enrollment. And because of all these factors, enrollment has to be looked at strategically and has to be looked at as something that's sort of separate from and a part of the big enrollment picture. So we have a great group this year with different strengths and different challenges, and I'm excited for you all to learn from each other and share strategies to address some of these factors. Now, as sort of a second opening activity, I wanted to share this video with you all. It's a parent testimonial video from Early Matters and Collaborative for Children. Okay, so I decided to show this video to help us start thinking about pre-kindergarten enrollment, some of those reasons why it's important that we just discussed, and to share an example of a marketing and outreach strategy, something that we're going to dive into a little deeper this year. Sorry about that, having a little technical difficulties here. Okay, so for the rest of today's webinar, we're going to review enrollment trends in Texas. We'll talk about our cohort a little bit for the year. We'll review the program outline. We'll discuss continuous quality improvement as a framework for our year. And we'll discuss data-informed practices and setting program goals. Lastly, there will be time for questions at the end. So our first area of interest is enrollment trends in Texas. Now, some of you might know some of these stats already, but we'll share them just in case. So currently there's approximately 50,000 eligible 4-year-olds who are not enrolled in free public pre-kindergarten and approximately 225,000 eligible 3-year-olds who are not enrolled in free public pre-K. So this year we want to work to address some of the barriers families face and increase awareness of our programs to help increase pre-kindergarten enrollment. We know from talking with you all and hearing from others in the field that some of the possible reasons for enrollment gaps include lack of awareness of opportunity, so maybe families don't even know that these programs exist, lack of awareness of eligibility requirements, so maybe they know the program exists, but they don't know if they qualify. There's also a lack of knowledge of the enrollment process in general. Families may not know who to call or where to go to or think the process might be too complicated. And lastly, some families may not realize the value or the importance of sending their child to pre-K in general. Next, we're going to discuss our cohort. So this is our first year to do this support network project. And for the enrollment group, we have 9 LEAs participating from across the state. We have great representation and a diverse group, and I think that'll really lend itself to rich conversations and strategy sharing. In my conversations with you all, some of you had some really great ideas that I'm excited that we can share with the whole group. In May, I had an initial phone call with you all and discussed some of the strengths and challenges regarding pre-K enrollment that you all are facing. I summarized that feedback I collected on our phone calls into sort of 3 different buckets. So there's the registration process, marketing and outreach, and length of school day. There's really a diverse range of strengths and challenges experienced by each of you, which I think is really great because there'll be lots of opportunities for peer learning. Some of the strengths identified by some of you were challenges for others. So I think that it'll be really great, especially in our PLCs. We'll maybe calling on some of you to share some of the strategies that you've utilized so that others can learn from you. I think some of the overwhelming evidence from the phone calls is that marketing and outreach is definitely a big challenge. As well as the length of the school day. And I know that some of these things are, dependent upon funding and resources, but my hope for this year, we can at least do as much as we can given those limitations. Lastly, for our cohort, there were these common responses for what your hopes are for the support network. So everyone mentioned wanting to connect with other LEAs, increase enrollment, improve enrollment processes, and improve outreach and marketing strategies. So I hope that this year we'll accomplish these things together in our webinars and our PLCs. You all are experiencing this every day and can provide each other with really valuable ideas. So I'm really excited that we'll have some set aside time each month to think about this and kind of focus our energy on increasing enrollment. Next, we'll review what the year will look like. I know we touched on this a bit on the orientation webinar, but we'll dive a little bit deeper today. So our year will be divided into 7 units, and each unit will consist of a webinar, a PLC, and a monthly phone call. More or less, we will cover the topics that are listed here, but as I get to know each of you more and where your strengths and challenges lie, we may rearrange these topics or come up with new topics. My primary goal is that this is helpful for you all, so there's definitely flexibility in what we cover and what the year looks like exactly. I did send out a PDF version of this that includes the links to register for each of the webinars and PLCs. And it's also listed on our SharePoint site. So if you did not receive it, you can check there, or you can also check in with me and I'll be sure to get that to you. Next, we're going to discuss continuous quality improvement. This will be our framework for the year. I know many of you are probably already familiar with this framework, or you may already use it in your work in other areas, but we'll review it here in the context of our work around pre-K enrollment and access. Continuous quality improvement, or CQI, is a process in which you are systematically analyzing your processes and making improvement. CQI is a great framework for many things, but I think it's particularly great for pre-K enrollment because of the factors that are affecting enrollment are constantly changing. So your neighborhood could be changing, either gaining or losing eligible children. Your funding could change. You could be losing or gaining potential partners, such as child care centers or Head Start centers. Your kids could be moving to a different neighborhood within your district, so maybe you need to move where pre-K is available. There's lots of factors that can change on a yearly basis, so it's important that we look at this regularly and are constantly evaluating how we can improve. As we saw on our last slide, there are 4 steps to this cycle: plan, do, study, and act. In the plan stage, you might want to create a team or utilize colleagues to help you analyze pre-K enrollment or identify key players with expertise in this area. You may also want to ask questions of stakeholders or parents to get ideas, as well as set goals and objectives and collect data. It's possible, depending on your LEA, that you may already be in this planning stage. When I talked with many of you in May, many of you were saying, like, you know, we've already kind of thought about this. We want to increase our pre-K enrollment. We identified we definitely have a gap. So some of you might already be in this stage or might have already collected data. Every LEA will be somewhere different, but we can, you know, determine where you are, set goals, and then work on that for the year. In the do stage, you implement your plan and collect data. In the study stage, you analyze and summarize data. And then in the act stage, you evaluate and decide on changes that you'll make. And so because of all those factors I just discussed about neighborhoods changing and funding changing, this is something that you would want to do on a regular basis. So next we'll discuss setting program goals. This year, I'd like for every LEA to create 1 to 2 enrollment-specific goals or objectives related to enrollment and access, utilizing existing data or data that you will obtain. You don't have to do this just yet, and I don't want it to sound scary. There's some easy ways to help you create those goals and some tools that we have where you can obtain some data that will help you with those goals. Our next webinar, we're going to dive a little deeper into several potential data sources that you can utilize to inform your goals. And those are listed here on this slide. So next month, we'll dive a little bit deeper into these. You might have already obtained some of these or already done them, and if you have, that's great. But if not, we'll talk about it next month. When you create your goals, you'll want to ensure that they are SMART. So they need to be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. I've listed some examples here of what these goals could look like. I do want to reiterate that I know that every LEA is different, and your goals can and may definitely be influenced by resources that are available to you, or available funding, available time. I know some of you wear many, many, many hats, and so that can definitely play into this as well. And lastly, your enrollment gap or partners in the community, those can also affect your goals. So everyone's goals can look very different. You know, maybe your goal this year is that you have a conversation with your leadership on the importance of pre-K, or maybe we find out some free ways to collect data. So there's different things that we can do to make little baby steps towards ultimately increasing enrollment. I also want to point out that there's really no right or wrong way to approach this. There's a lot of research on why increasing enrollment and increasing access is important, but there's not a lot of research on how to do that. So the purpose of this program this year is really just to support you all, to give you some ideas, to facilitate some strategy sharing. There's no right or wrong way or black or white answer on how to increase enrollment because the factors are so different in every community. So this year we'll learn from each other, and we'll pull ideas from other organizations such as Head Start or other social service organizations, and we'll determine a plan that works best given your community and what's going on at your LEA. Next, I just wanted to briefly discuss the program self-assessment. Some of you may have completed this last year. We have a new and improved version coming out very soon for both pre-K and kindergarten. And we also have a guide coming out that will accompany it. So it'll give you some concrete guidance and tips on how to complete the self-assessment. So this year, every LEA participating in the Support Network program will complete the entire self-assessment this fall, and then we'll complete just the access and enrollment section in the spring. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it on this first webinar is because this is a great way to help you assess your program and determine some potential goals or objectives related to pre-K enrollment. So you can see the different categories here of developing, proficient, and exemplary. And when you conduct the self-assessment, you can use the information here to make different goals. So for example, maybe you change your enrollment process so that families are able to enroll in one visit. Or maybe you increase your outreach strategies because you learn that you may only have one strategy you're currently utilizing. So this is an easy way for you all to gather some data and to help influence the goals and objectives that you set for the year. So next steps for us, we will have a monthly phone call together, and these are already scheduled. You all signed up, and we have those set on our calendars. For our phone call this month, we will talk about potential objectives and data sources for goal setting and tracking. Again, this will just kind of be a brainstorming session. You don't have to move super fast on this. I know that you all have many important things that you do in addition to this. So the first phone call really will be just to kind of brainstorm together. Our PLC is next week on Wednesday, September 26th at 10 a.m. And these are limited to one participant per LEA. These will be very informal and just an opportunity for everyone to talk to each other and get ideas from each other. And I'd like for you all to come prepared to discuss your LEA's strengths and challenges related to pre-K enrollment. And together we're going to brainstorm potential solutions. Because when I had these phone calls with you all in May, it was really interesting to hear, some of what you experience as a challenge was a strength for others and vice versa. And so I'm excited for you all to get to talk to each other. Our next unit will be on data collection and assessment, with the webinar occurring on October 24th at 10 a.m. And that's where we're going to dive into different ideas of different data that you could potentially pull to influence your goals. So family surveys, focus groups, the self-assessment, there's different things that you could potentially do. So we'll talk about that a little bit more next month. Before we wind down and move into questions, I wanted to briefly cover some of the resources that will be available to you all. So the SharePoint site that you all have access to has a resource library with some resources in it. I've already uploaded an enrollment toolkit for you all, and there will be more coming soon. As soon as it's available, we'll also put the program self-assessment and the program self-assessment guide. But this is also a place for you all to share resources. So if you have anything related to enrollment that you think would be helpful, feel free to email it to me and I can upload it to the site. I'm sure there's lots of great things that you all are utilizing that we can share with others. So feel free to send those to me and I'll get those added. Also, if you are still having difficulty accessing the SharePoint site, feel free to shoot me an email and we can troubleshoot that together. So next, we're gonna just open it up for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the questions section of the control panel and we'll get to those. And I'll stick around for a bit and give everyone a few minutes to ask any questions you might have. We did have one question. It looks like someone had difficulty hearing the video. So the link is definitely available in the PowerPoint. So if you'd like to watch it on your own time, you can go to that YouTube site and it's available there. And it looks like we have another question. It says, with enrollment hopefully increasing through these efforts, the need for additional staff will become a necessity. Will we address this? I think that's a great point. With increasing enrollment, you definitely want to be able to support that as well. And so we can definitely brainstorm together how to approach that. So we have another question. We're looking at expansion options in full day programs. Any supports in getting funding for Head Start programs? So yes, we will have one unit this year on partnerships. And my goal is to bring in some guest speakers and other districts who are utilizing childcare and Head Start as partners so that we can kind of talk through some of the logistics of what that looks like at their district. Okay, with that, it looks like we don't have any further questions, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. My contact information is here. I think you all have my contact information as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. We'll also chat on our monthly calls. Also, if you have any ideas of things that we should cover, or if your district is doing something that's working really well and you want to share it with the group, let me know that as well. Otherwise, we will now end the webinar. Thank you so much for participating, and we will talk soon. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.